Hey, everybody. This is me and Chris and George, and this week we're going to go over one of Chris's games. And then I'll be asking questions, and George might have questions, and that's it. So, Chris, take it away.
All right. Hi again, everybody. This is a game I played a couple weeks ago against Tony Yang, 7-dan, 14-year-old next USA prodigy, we hope. Currently, I believe he's training for the 2024 Pro exam and taking on the strongest challengers on KGS. So if you think that fits the bill, feel free to challenge him on Tuesdays. All right, shall we dive right in?
Dive right in.
All right. I believe you have control.
Oh, I'm going to give you control.
We like control. We like control. It seems my internet did a blip there. I'll fix that in a minute. As long as KGS doesn't kick me first. I think I'm still... Nope, it kicked me. Let me log back into KGS real fast. This is the morning of technical difficulties, I think. All right, we're in.
And we're giving you control.
Perfect, thank you.
Which didn't work, so I'm going to do it again. There you go.
Awesome. So going through this game, this is also one of the rare instances where I get to play black, which we don't really get to see very often. It's not every day that I'm finding myself playing the black pieces. Why is my computer doing that? Give me 1 second. Okay, we're good now. All right, so here, this is something I like to do a lot. When my opponents play the really tight pincers that have complicated variations, I like to ignore them and focus on direction of play instead.
Uh-huh.
Of course, this does mean that white is going to get his choice of playing something like A or B and bother the one stone, but I'll use the one stone as like my foothold to break the left later. At this point, I'm just switching back to developing my own area, treating it like, okay, C15 is already a stone to reduce his side. I don't need to do anything further with it.
Okay. Now, I already have a question.
Yep.
So I generally think of white A next.
Mm-hmm.
And your last move has already really taken a bite out of the white wall that's about to happen.
Yep.
Okay. Would you actually consider the same move at R6 a mistake?
Maybe not a mistake, but I feel like it would be probably worse direction than 017 for sure.
Yeah,
It might be
so
more of
just
an
worse
inaccuracy.
direction, yeah. Making the game harder for black, not necessarily an actual lack of points. Okay, good.
Yeah, and so when he goes here, like we've already discussed, right, 017 is kind of reducing the wall, so this move seems to have a lot of power behind it. And so I can sort of just kind of focus on getting the next Shimari, so to speak.
Uh-huh.
Hold on. It seems I'm lagging. Am I still in the game room for you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So at least it didn't kick me. That's always good. I'm going to try...
Now you can still live in that upper left corner.
Yeah, there it goes. Why did it kick me again a second time? Yes, I can still live in the upper left corner.
Yeah.
Quite easily, actually, as long as white doesn't add another move. But that's sort of the caveat of these positions, is that it's always white's right to add that other move. White can do it if white wants to.
Yeah.
There's nothing stopping white.
Now,
but
there's something about this that troubles me.
Yeah.
Looking at the white stones, white got a wall that's already negated, and white didn't get the corner. What is white getting? Oh, Chris is gone. We'll wait for him to get back in. I might need to give him that link again. He's disabled, so I can't give him the link. We'll just assume he has it. For the viewers, we've had nothing but technical difficulties this morning on everyone's part.
Yeah, sorry about that.
And you're back in. Good.
My somebody in the house, I think, reset the Wi-Fi, hard reset the Wi-Fi because it booted me from the call too. But I'm back in now. So you were mentioning something bothered you.
Well,
last thing I heard before.
White's getting the wall, which you've taken a big bite out of. and white
Yep.
didn't get the corner. So what is white getting?
Gote for another move, as far as I'm concerned.
So you're seeing this as a positive for black.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the game is even. White has to play at a slower pace, but I'm fine with that as black because I'm also playing in a very thick and territorial way.
Okay.
So it's not like I'm going to fall behind on that type of game. And of course, he adds the other move. This is if you're going to play d15 and they don't answer, generally you should put the other stone in, because if you lose the ability to make the wall and you lose the corner, it's normally going to be better for black out of the opening.
Okay.
At least by a few points.
And now I would say white's wall just became a more real thing, making the top an interesting place to play in now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So naturally, I played away to the bottom.
Right.
And so the couple of reasons for doing this. The top side is a bit contested at the moment. He's got the thick group here, and I've got the sort of faster enclosure at 017, both looking at the top. For white, white's probably going to think about something like A or B. For black, black's probably going to think about something like C. Timing for these moves is tricky for me.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't even play them just because I don't like moves like C unless they do multiple purposes. But handling the top right now is not something I'm going to worry about. He doesn't have a weak group to use the thickness to attack actively. And if he plays around A, I'm not going to give him one. Like my plan is like if something like this, I'll just crawl and take the territory. Whoops, can I do like this? He's going to get a little bit more power facing the center this way, but I can avoid the dangers of the thickness that I gave him. So it's a bit of a simpler line of play for black. You can also resist like this. This one is also fine. If black is more interested in having the really, really, really like tall corner, but in general, I'm not so worried about him playing there now. And he just answers and then attach. And so this is a really common thing to see when you've got a corner enclosure already finished over here, this attachment A. It strengthens the F3 in preparation for the upcoming fight on the bottom. Which I entirely expected him to avoid, but then he pushed and then cut.
Okay, now this push and cut, I've never understood. I've tried this way, I've tried that way. I never know what to do as black in this situation. So you're going to show us.
Yeah. So it's a variation that I know about. I would be lying if I said that this particular variation was a variation that I studied. This method wasn't really used when I took the class I took. Normally, at that point, with a lot of the AI discoveries on this type of position, white would play out the corner to here and then either jump, which is like the more common move, I think, or white would just play this one directly to handle the right and the bottom at the same time. So I was expecting something like that, or maybe even he would break the corner this way or, something. But the push and cut is definitely a sacrifice type of idea white could have. That often doesn't become a sacrifice. It becomes white gets a living group on the bottom and then has a black group in the middle to attack with the wall at G4.
Okay.
So this is sort of the common pattern at this point. Everything is Joseki until now. Black gets the wall at L3 facing up. White gets to live inside and handle the black area without any issue. And white, the real problem here is going to be when black has to come and play this, white gets to play the Hane and grow. So when the left side is really attractive for white, the cut at H3 seems to make a lot of sense because it can destroy the bottom territory for the opponent, and it's like natural right, and the pattern is to build the left side. Which actually at this point started looking scary for me because I forgot that detail when I played it.
Okay.
So we got to this point in the game, and I'm thinking to myself, maybe I could have done something better. If I could, I haven't quite decided what that was yet. The game is still relatively even. I didn't feel like I was particularly behind because I'm also building the right side, albeit not as good as white's building the left. But there's a lot of games still left to be played, a lot of the board's still open. Where this would get hard for a Q player, though, is how do you handle the left side?
Yeah, real hard.
Because no matter where you play inside, behind enemy. You have to kind of go behind enemy lines, and that's a bit hard when black is or when white is so thick in the corner.
Yeah. Go back to the bottom,
Mhm.
to the original. Okay, so you did this Atari. Does the other Atari work?
We're talking about Atari from
J3.
J3. So you want to do something like
Yeah.
this one. I'm trying to remember if I considered this in the game. I almost never consider the J3 Atari because usually it's less good for black. Most of the time, it's like, can black capture white before white can capture black? It becomes like a weird semi-eye with the corner. White gets to play first. So maybe like this. Can we Hane safely here? I might have gotten about this far in my reading and chose not to read it further because in order to play this way, you have to read the whole race out. And
Right.
oftentimes it involves how much do you have on the corner. Like I know I know that J3 is possible when, like in the back of my head, just a knowledge thing, when like that's a white stone and that's a black stone. Something like this, because black can Hane sooner and there's less risk in the capturing race. And then it's just, okay, it kind of reverts to the same thing as before. White's not going to live on the bottom, but white gets to squeeze a little bit.
Okay.
But I wasn't confident in it here just because we only had 30 minutes and I didn't want to spend all the time trying to read out the complications with this particular corner.
Yeah.
So I would say maybe, for those that are curious, play it on a demo board and find out if I failed here.
Right.
But I did not do that in the game.
Yeah. Next, do your H2 again. And then J2.
Push from below is also a method, yeah.
White so this too is possible.
Yeah, this one is gunning for the fight for this one.
Now, might we say that black is naturally negating the left, just white can get less now?
Yep, and this one might actually even be better than game for me in terms of like how easy it's going to be for black. And I would have picked it if I remembered that the other way white gets H5. But that was the detail that I'd forgotten about. And so when we got through the Joseki and I went back and cut at the corner and white extended and I descended, I realized only in that moment, I was like, wait a minute, he gets to play J5 and build the wall on this one. I was like, oh, this probably wasn't the best direction for me.
Okay. So all these variations are quite reasonable given context. Okay. Sometimes I get worried, oh, I'm choosing something that actually can't be done, and I get all worried.
Yeah. And then the other cool thing about this variation that you point out is actually the thickness at B is more relevant than the thickness at A on this board.
Yeah.
Because white is the player that is completely surrounded here, more so than black.
Yeah.
So white has to be the one really worrying about a base and worrying about, the eye space, and the corner's not even alive yet. So this kind of fighting would actually be a lot better for black, I think, than going for the variation that I chose in the game here. So already I felt like the position to this point was somewhat questionable for me.
Yeah.
I didn't think I was losing per se. It still looks like it's a manageable game, but the problem is, how do I get into the left side? So I push one time and I attach. And again, this is just to avoid any complications, even though it makes complications. I felt like if I played this one, it might be just a little too simple for white. White can press from above, and I'm not really sure what life is going to look like with this, but I do know that whatever the living shape looks like, it's going to be painful. So I opted for a more direct approach, and this is a common TSG a lot of times when white doesn't have C16, but it's also playable when C16 is on the board.
Yeah. Okay, so let's pause here for a second. For viewers, put the knight's move back on, C11. Okay, so we know that the knight's move approach to a fourth line stone is just this totally common way of finding room in an area. And heck, black even has a 2-space extension to C8 right out of the Joseki books. but white's thickness is intense. So this would be the thing
Mhm.
for uh, high Q, low dawn players to realize is yeah, there's a lot of room, but white is so thick, it's going to be difficult.
Mhm.
And then the big trick in my mind is difficulty means he's getting a lot of profit.
Yes.
It doesn't mean it's impossible. It doesn't mean you're going to die. It's going to be painful, and that equals points.
Yep.
Therefore, you make the contact move, like the
Mhm.
proverb says, if you want to live in your opponent's area, make a contact move.
Yep.
And of course, this contact move, we're not committed to it in the slightest. It's only to ask the question, find out what direction's easier.
Mhm.
Okay, good.
Yep. And so he goes below, which is a bit of a submissive answer, actually. And also one that caught me off guard because I completely expected him to play this one. And in most cases, when white is so thick, this one is usually considered the only move. So I was quite surprised to see such a soft answer. The reason being, just for anyone that cares to know, when your opponent is so thick around and they play this outside Hane, this one actually makes it more difficult for you to live locally. Um, and the other side of that coin is you will live locally, you will not be able to run. White has too many stones around, so you're kind of stuck into how do I live painfully with this group if it goes this way. Maybe
Uh-huh.
black can engineer a sacrifice with something like this. That would be the best hope, or some crosscut or something. But
Uh-huh.
he played this one and made it quite easy for me.
Uh-huh.
So I
And
asked
could
the
you
question.
play the shoulder hit at E12 for black as the starting move?
Yeah, you could try this. This one could be fine too.
Now,
Um,
please go ahead.
well, I imagine white would block. That seems to be the next natural way. And so I figured it'd probably be something close to this shape wise.
Now,
And
white,
then
this seems to me like white's really taking a hit. White's so low on the left. What's white getting?
white is getting used for the thickness because now white has the target. And so one thing to notice here, this is something maybe a little bit more advanced for high level players. This Shimari is very, very, very bad if this group gets into a fight. Because what this Shimari represents is that white at any point in time is going to have an invisible wall here. White's
Okay.
going to force black to keep that corner. So when I look at this fight in my head and I see this Shimari in particular, I'm viewing the board as though white triangles already exist.
Okay, good.
And so in that context, this fighting, although it might be playable, black is taking some shape hits on the bottom, and the group in the center is quite weak. White's going to get to attack that for the whole
Okay,
game.
good. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So I'm
And
just
just
not
for
really a fan.
fun, create that white wall in the upper right.
Sure. Let me just have black answer something here really quick. So a lot of times I can start like this, this. And so you can start to see the wall forming in its most condensed form here.
Uh-huh. Okay, good.
Yeah, and these are all free exchanges for white, barring black decides he wants to keep all the points in that corner. Oftentimes in the game, strong players will look at this type of corner shape in this type of fighting if they fall into this variation, and they'll actually the first thing we consider is, can I sack the corner? Can I give the points away?
Uh-huh.
A good proverb I remember learning, I forget who taught it to me, was the territory in the middle game is only as good as the money can be spent.
Uh-huh.
And so what is that corner points going to do for you in the middle game? Absolutely nothing. It's only valuable to you in end game. So spend the money now and make the money back later.
Yeah. Okay, good.
But here, like if white gets all the points on the left that white got, and I lose a whole corner, it's a big swing in the balance of territory also. So it's a lot harder for black to want to give it up when white got so much profit already.
Okay.
So it was just not a fight I was comfortable in.
So,
Uh-huh.
so Chris, presumably O16 would have been perfect to have that high Shamari in conjunction with that running group.
I would say 016, but even better than 016 would be this one.
Okay.
Get
If
the
you're gonna
yeah.
if you're gonna be fighting in the center, this is the best Shimari for you, period. Because this is the Shimari that your opponent can bother the absolute least in fights. There's no leaning move white can play on this corner that black needs to respond to. the
Okay.
corner will be
Yeah.
perfectly stable on its own with points, even if white gets 2 moves in a row. So with that being said, starting a center fight is not really on the table for me when I have this particular Shimari in the upper left corner.
Very nice.
At least that was my my logic for why I chose this over the shoulder hit. So he went the submissive route, so I stopped this one, which forces him to connect, and then I ask another question. This is another very common thing to do. Which side is white going to be interested in cutting from? If white cuts this way, black is going to live quite easily in the center. Even if like white descends to break the eye, black has things like the knight's move I can escape quite well. Now the lean in the upper right corner doesn't really come into play because my group is heading southeast, not northeast. So if he leans, I can defend the corner, and the best he's going to get is some extra topside profit.
Go back to that.
Sure.
And let's have white play F12.
F12, sure.
I want to see how you handle this.
Okay, just diagonal.
Okay. Now he can cut you there.
He can try, yeah.
And you're just willing to give up some stones, and you
Yeah.
still made a good invasion.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Because again, the name of the game is light. Nothing that black has done here has been particularly committal. It's just been, how do I dip my toe in and run away? So black can sacrifice any one of the 5 stones as long as he can maintain access to the center, because that's what we're solving for, right? What are we doing once we come in on the left? We're looking for the middle. As long as you know that, you can play in a much more liberated way, because you're not worried about, darn, how do I live here? You're worried about, how the hell do I get out? Pardon my language. Or how the heck do I get out, right? Like,
Yeah.
I need to go. Like, and so when you think about that, it's like black might even go faster.
Yeah.
Like you might even just omit the one exchange and just play this one directly. That's the, what is it, 1, 2, 3 principle. You play 1, 2, and 3, just play 3.
Right.
You know? So if we're gonna sacrifice the 3 stones to the cut, maybe we just do it this way. We just omit the bad exchange or whatever. Yeah. But yeah, so if he cuts, I'm gonna be able to get out. It's a bit of a weird gap with H8. And so in the game, he chose to cut from the better side. This one is gonna give white a lot of profit and sort of force black to make that group in the center of the board, which black right now doesn't necessarily mind. It's out, it's in the center, it's doing its job. But later, white is going to be aiming to attack those 3 stones on a somewhat large scale.
Yeah.
Like white's plan is going to be, how do I get a turn at A, an attachment at B? And when white is naturally playing out both of those variations, these 3 stones get cut off from their friends. They have nowhere to go. And then the white's presence in the middle allows white to basically kill them on a large scale. It's going to be very hard for black to live in the center without any of those resources available. So white's looking way into the future with this type of strategy. It's a very calm play locally, but make no mistake, for those watching, the 3 stones are definitely a target in white's mind at some point.
Yeah.
Just not easy for white to go after them now. So with that in mind, I'm sure you'll be able to guess where I played next.
Assuming you extend out up to the H line off your 3 stones.
Nope. I choose a more indirect method of saving.
Oh, I see. Right, obviously.
So if he wants to capture them, he's going to capture them small.
Right.
At this point.
I like where you said that. Because you hate making them live, because it's going to take a long time. So please capture those 3 stones.
Yeah, a hard concept to get, at least for me, up until like 3 dawns. So the main logic is white has answered every move I've played here. So in theory, I haven't really lost anything yet.
Right.
And if white does manage to surround and capture, there's 4 white stones inside the white territory to match the 4 black stones that I've played there. It would have been like white took the whole left and gote. Right. Meanwhile, black is controlling the whole rest of the board on a much higher line than white. White's on the 8th line, I'm on the 11th.
Yeah.
So this type of play is more whole board dynamic. I know he wants to attack, and this is sort of one of the last 2 big places. And so in my mind, this one is much more urgent to me to play than something on the right side, which would shore up my right side position. For example, I think AI recommended I go here next. And it was actually one of the things I studied for a while, because I couldn't quite understand why it thought 1 was more important than 2. And if I play this game again, I'm still going to play 2.
Uh-huh.
The difference is very small, half a point. But the human logic is, if I can see that the attack is coming and I have the option to take one of the last big points that are roughly the same and remove that attack in the future, I'm going to play that one. It's just better for me.
Yeah.
And if Black does play Q10, presumably White's move will be around M17 or N16.
If I remember what it wanted, I think it wanted White to just turn. Now, keep in mind that the AI is a lot stronger than humans, but what it's looking at, from what I remember of this game, is it's looking at the fact that Black has this shape, and it actually thinks the shape is quite weak in relation to this attachment at A. White's going to be able to break a lot of the right side and the center with this turn and attach combination.
Yeah, that's just stupid that AI can do all that. It's like, give me a break.
Like, maybe a top human might understand that to a finer degree than I am, but at least for my level, I know A is there, but in my opinion, and I'm going to be really honest with you, if I can sacrifice both of these profitably, I will. Because at this point, White's alive on both sides. They're not really cutting stones. They're just there to help build the center. So after White turns, if they can't build the center, I'm not going to save them. I'm just going to move back to the right side. So hopefully that answered that question. White, I think a human player, George, would play on the top, yes. If they saw this, I think a human player attaches pretty immediately. Because in my mind, there's no reason for White not to go for this. This looks like the next biggest place, and you would have to give me reasons not to do this for me to not do this.
Yeah.
Because I just don't see anything else. Maybe even like this. But the top looked to be the best place for me because it makes my whole right potential 11th line. It gains on the top. It reduces the thickness. It defends the 3 stones with like a half move of help. So I'm saving my 3 stones in a very light and efficient way. And now the White turn is a lot less threatening because now if White turns, I can play a lot closer to my groove. And I don't have a reason to play farther away. I can make the Q11 placement better in relation to the J8 turn. So of course, when I play on the top, White just comes in. This is the classic move. I'm sure everybody that's watched any of your lectures has seen this one.
Right.
Black has 2 choices. Black has A and Black has B. And, maybe there's something to be said for playing from above on this board. But B is the wider side, so I played on B. Doesn't really matter, honestly, which one you go to. This one is going to force White to be cramped against my corner. And this was the position I said was similar to the one you were thinking about in your game with Crazy Stone, where I debated a whole bunch of different moves, but I came to the conclusion that the knight move was the best. And I think that this was this was probably the biggest instructional part of this game for me when I played it. Because a lot of players, I think, will sort of default to these moves like A and B. It's very, very common to go like, oh, we're just going to play the side Joseki in the middle game, and it's going to look something like this. And then, Black can either go here and get a really big top side and draw the group out, or Black can play something like this and start building the whole bottom right. And it looks very attractive, right? And then you have the other one B, right, where it's kind of the same thing. You can do something like this, and when White defends, I mean, oh, look at how good that looks. It's like every Q player's dream, but that's unfortunately all it is, a dream. Because what you tend to realize when you study this move long enough is that when things like this happen, your opponent's not just going to play the submissive move. They're going to ask you questions instead. And then the game gets very, very complicated, and I don't know if I like the results when White ignores me and starts attaching to my stones. And so I read them out from both sides. I read them out, and I determined that White would never answer this passively. There's no reason for White to do that. He'll just trade. So if that's the case, I want to put as much pressure on both as I can and make trading not really on the table. I want him to live locally. So that's where I came up with this move.
So one thing I'm just floored with is, I'm trying to imagine a 5Q watching this and going, yeah, I get it. It's like, no, we've gone over so many principles and ideas that are high level. I'm like gasping for air going, okay, yeah, yeah, I got it. I understand. But it's like, man, up to my chin here. Deep stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready.
Yeah. And then he did something really unexpected. So at this point, I was thinking about, okay, there's an attachment, there's this attachment, right? Because like one of the easy ways for white to live is to play something like this. And white's gonna be alive. This is a very simple life for white. Oftentimes white's gonna get this shape in Sente, and the worst white ever gets here is a ko. Just a shape I've seen a number of times. It's come up in so many games. It's usually alive. At worst, it's a ko. And then white gets the Sente to come in, either the turn or with this one. And so I'm expecting something similar to this. The move that gets played in the game was a move I didn't consider at all, and it was this one. And I'm still not really sure what to make of it. During the game, I wondered if this move was actually correct, because it seems like it's just giving me the center for free. So I Hane. Natural move. I'm the attacking side here, so I put the pressure on. White extends, and I defend the center. Nice and easy. For those wondering why I don't connect, at this point, white's going to get a living shape. If I connect, white's going to break the center. And then what did the connection do exactly?
Right.
Right now I have to follow up with something like this or this or this to keep trying to attack it, but white's just going to settle, and then I've got all these stones facing nothing at this point.
Yeah.
There is a cut in the shape, but the cut can be met with extend. Yeah. And that stone on the top side is really useful now because white doesn't have a ladder anymore. So This is where that J16 stone sort of comes back.
Yeah.
In that situation. At this point, I thought I was doing pretty well. The game is still relatively even, but white needs to do something with this group white's made because white's giving me pretty much the whole center. And then the next move that kind of surprised me, white turned. And I couldn't
quite slow.
Yeah, I couldn't quite understand the meaning behind it. It seemed to me like maybe white was hoping that at some point we would get a variation similar to this. Could be the only thing I could think of. And this was going to be white's ticket to either getting out, something like this into this or something. But even that result doesn't look really appeasing to me. In the game, I just connect. I defended. I didn't see a reason to do anything else.
Right.
Now I have the middle. The middle is territory. White cannot invade and take that away anymore. And white, I've caught up a little bit of the points I lost on the left by giving the left to white the way that I did. But the game is still even. Surprisingly enough, the game is still even. So even though I thought the variation was quite slow, somehow it's still okay for white. And actually, I ended up underestimating just how strong the white group gets in the shape, which we'll see in a minute. Now, this one, how to choose between A or B. Generally speaking, when you have the R9 extension, your opponent does this attach and you Hane and pull back. A is much better for Aji in the center, and B is much better for Aji in the corner. So I played B to help the corner Aji, thinking there's nothing that's going to happen in my center. The center is my territory. Pop quiz, I lose the middle. And it's done in a very spectacular way, which I thought was great. And then I know that this move is coming next. This is not anything unclear to me. The minute that I connected and I saw him going for life, I knew that this invasion was going to be something I had to deal with.
Yeah.
Now I make the next questionable move of the game. When white is already alive on the right side, black really only has one move here. And that is to block directly at the sun and live.
Yeah.
You need to just get alive. In my mind, I didn't like this because it softens a lot these 5 stones.
Yeah.
One of the drawbacks to me taking the center like I did here is that if I really want the statement to be true that I don't have any, and that the center is my territory, then that means I have to respect any move around A, B, or C white plays.
Right.
Which those moves unfortunately also naturally surround the marked black stones with triangles. So looking ahead, this direction, even though I know in principle this should be the method black uses here on paper, I wasn't really convinced of it in the game because I thought if I soften the top side, what is the center territory going to mean if white gets to attack everything anyway?
Right.
I'm not really a big fan of that. It seems like maybe I'm just throwing initiative away and I'm not convinced I have enough territory to win. So in the game, I resist.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that was my logic there. But it turns out my logic didn't logic so well because this one ends up losing a few points. Not only does it lose a few points, at this point it gets very complicated and black has a lot of reading black has to do.
Yeah.
And the hardest part is that this type of pattern always means black is reading a lot more than white is. Because white just needs to answer whatever black does.
These are hard questions, Chris. These are really hard.
Yeah, it was not a simple matter. And I kind of missed that I had an easy bailout during the game because I was in a situation where I had to read so much that I saw the right variation staring in front of me and I missed it anyway. How often does that happen? Like, because in the game, I find the next right move, white blocks, but I'm thinking defend and attack at the same time. It's going to be hard for white to cut. But what I really should have done was protect it this way. White wants to cut, let him cut. Let him cut. He captures, so be it. He descends, so be it. He Ataris, so be it. He connects, so be it.
Yeah.
If it goes this way, white scoops the whole corner out. It's good territory, but the top side stays secure. J16 is a really good extension spacing, and the group on the right side is under attack.
Right.
And actually, this method of play makes the game slightly better for white or for black.
Yeah.
This whole game has been white by a point or so on the AI graph. It's been within a point to a half a point the whole time. Both sides not really giving an inch on the score. My one questionable Joseki mistake in the bottom left tilted it slightly in white's favor. But now I get it back if it goes this way.
Yeah.
So, but I missed it in the game, and I ended up coming to the conclusion that this was the move I needed to play. And if white is strong, like here, then this loses just on the spot for black. And it's very, very difficult to win, but thankfully my opponent played the wrong order of things. I played he cut, which was the right move, and then I played here, and he's supposed to just connect, which is what I thought he would do. But instead he gives me the squeeze with the liberties. Now, a lot of times for higher level players, you'll make this sort of 1 for 2 into 3 reflexively. But when liberties are important, do not do this. This is the good exchange for the end game. This is the bad exchange for local fighting, because you lose liberties, which comes back to bite white when black extends and forces white to capture, and then gets to defend the top side. So I recover a lot of my damage here. White was ahead by about Comey, actually, before white blocked at Q18. It made a 4-point difference.
Okay.
But in the game, I don't count it that accurately. And so I'm thinking at this point, even though I lost the corner, the result's acceptable for black because the outside spacing is still good. I have potential at G17 to get points back, and I still have the center territory. Now it's just a matter of what's the left side going to look like. Right? And white still has to add a move here anyway, because it's 3 versus 3 in the corner. So I got that with Sente. Yeah, white captured, but white captured in Gote.
Right.
So I'm feeling okay about it. And, for human players, it's probably fine. You're not going to have too many players on Earth that are going to look at this game and go, I'm winning here as white, and then carry that all the way through endgame. Maybe if you're Shinjin-So or something.
Right.
But I'd be confident against most people they're going to make mistakes. So now, what is left on the board for black to do? I thought about it. I could play a move at A, but it's Gote. right? I could play a move around C, but again, it's like small endgame gote. I could play a move around D, or B. I mean, I can play a move around C and try to reduce. But white is still very thick, and I have a lot of thin shapes nearby. I wasn't really convinced that C was going to be useful. Looks like I lose a tempo. White starts counterattacking me.
Yeah.
Like just for example, like not saying white would play it, but like there's really nasty stuff like this white might try. And if black wants to avoid it, black can play something like this. But a lot of times, even that one exchange is enough to help white go a little bit further.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of questions with C. So I didn't think I could do C directly, but I came to the conclusion that the left side was the most interesting. So I pushed. And this is where we start using the aji that black left behind on the left side.
Now,
So,
for any viewers, this is sente to kill at C13.
mm-hmm.
It's a lot of black moves here that are sente to kill, and that's one of them.
Yeah, like just to show it looks something like this if white just passively answers. So white played the strongest response. White said C13 will never be a threat to me. But of course, that yields that black's going to get the Hane for free. And then white actually makes a big mistake here, which surprised me. Because in my reading, white only has one move in this type of fighting. When you need to keep the maximum pressure on black, only move.
Yeah.
In the game, white played this one instead, which immediately has a glaring weak point.
At F10, yeah.
Yeah. So we pounce on that, and then we defend.
That's
so
fantastic.
Yeah. So we get to walk out. Unfortunately, I missed one key detail, and he found it. White has a sneaky little push right here. And why is that important? Because after black blocks, I don't have a ladder anymore. So that one stone killed my whole group. If I block. And he spent quite a bit of time here to come up with it. When he found that move, all I could do was stop for a second, look at it, and put in the chat, yeah, that's a move. Because I can't afford to answer it. And so that whole center that I thought I had, I don't have that. I don't have that anymore. And now this one should be here.
Yeah.
So my earlier decision that was correct in the moment is also now losing me points. So I could only find one method to go forward. I spent quite a bit of time, and I come to the conclusion that I have to start counterattacking, because as it stands, if it's going to go the route of forming a sacrifice, I would prefer to sacrifice like this and have the ability to cut white and fight inside like this. This is the only thing that I could think of that doesn't just lose on the spot. Just for the viewers, if they're wondering where this move came from. And neither one of us in the moment necessarily saw the right move. The best defense for white that doesn't lose anything immediately is this one. In the game, white did something a bit more human-like with the attach and crosscut. And this one gave me quite a bit of leverage in the position, because I'm able to play this Atari and capture, and I'm still aiming at that cut at G5. So that pressure is still there, but also white's losing liberties now. And then, you know how kids are, right? This is one of the things I can point out to any of you if you're ever playing a strong kid. All kids have the same weakness. They're a little impatient. So he guns for the cut now, which is also a mistake. I was very surprised. Why is it a mistake? Because white's going to lose a lot of liberties here. Because once we get to the point where black plays Atari, it's a one-way street up to the cut and connect. And so now white's got a Geta problem with the 3 stones white has to deal with, but white also lost liberties with the H6 group for no reason. Better for white still would have been just extending. It's enough for white to maintain the liberties, because right now I can't cut. White can always connect back with the Atari, but if I get a squeeze, I might be able to live inside. So he really doesn't want to allow me to have the liberty leverage to squeeze in here. So we got this fight, and then white played Atari, and then this Atari. And he mentioned after the game he forgot I could play this one. Yeah. But actually, this move is a mistake. The game is on such a fine edge. I'm not going to go too much into the reading details. This one does the same thing and would have been a lot stronger taking the liberty. That's the main detail here. But I played this one because it's increasing my eye space, and if white connects, then I got it for free. If I capture, I'm much closer to living. White comes out. And now we're sort of at the climax of the game. The whole white group in the bottom left corner is not alive yet.
Okay.
If white lives with this bottom left group, white wins, 10 points. Easy game. Black doesn't have enough territory. I lost the whole middle, right?
Right.
If black kills the group on the bottom, white resigns. I don't know about you. I hate being in this position. It's a lot more pressure on the killing side than it is on the living side. He can do whatever he wants. All he needs is 2 eyes. Me, I have to play every single move precisely. I can't give him leeway.
Right.
If I give him leeway, he's going to live. So he starts coming through. I can't afford to stop it. I need to make the eye space in the center big enough to hold up for this kill. So I go back and save the group. And so maybe the beginning of the end starts from here. I play this move a little prematurely. I don't really need to play it. Yeah, I don't really need to play it, and I should just defend my center. If I defend the center, white's dead. White can't get out. There's nothing here white can do to escape. And black is going to be able to live inside. So with something like this, this should lead to a path where white ends up dead.
Yeah.
That's the first easy kill that I missed. I got a little bit afraid and played this one for some reason. Then white attacked. Oh, whoops. I didn't want to spoil it. White attacked. I connected. It seemed like the strongest move. And then white went here. And this is where the teaching habits sort of don't die out. Because I played the move I would play reflexively in a teaching game, which is N5.
Right.
But N5 doesn't work. N7 will just live on the spot for white. So I have to play N7. If I play N7, white's dead. White's just dead. And I win 50 points. I play this one, white played N7. I realized in this moment, crap, white's alive. And so we play a couple more moves out for formality, then I throw in the non-working cut, and that was my resignation. But for having not played a somewhat serious game in something close to 8 to 10 months, I think I did too bad.
Yeah. Well, there was a whole bunch of very intense thinking in there.
Yeah, it's sort of a glimpse into, because I mean we get to see a lot what it looks like when I beat up on Crazy Stone, like when I'm playing against a thing that's thinking at a lower level, right? And you can sort of show the proper moves and punish. But what happens when the teacher sees resistance? Well, that's what happens.
Yeah.
Go is hard. It doesn't get easier.
It could.
That game took a lot out of me.
Yeah.
Funny enough. But hopefully I'll get to play Tony again. This game gives me hope that unlike his brother, I'll have chances to win.
Uh-huh.
I've played Kevin 4 or 5 times, and I have never, outside of the very first game that we played 2 years ago, I've never been in a winning position in any game I've played against Kevin, ever.
Yeah.
It's so impressive to me how these kids get so good, especially coming up with AI now, that they can play at this level where like kids, 10, 20, 30 years ago would never have,
right.
Even out of Asia, they would never have that level of consistency that young.
Yeah.
Like to the point where Kevin is like, when he gets a small lead, like a 1-point lead, he can recognize he has it and doesn't give it up most of the time. Like you have to sort of play on the I don't want to call it the arrogance of children, but like the impulsiveness of kids. You have to try to catch him off guard with something he doesn't expect to get him flustered. And that's like your chance to win. It's a very meta type of strategy rather than anything on the board. Because if you just play him stone for stone on the board, you're probably losing.
Yeah.
Which I think is insane. But yeah, hopefully the viewers enjoyed that. I know it was a bit intense, but it sort of showcases the thinking when I have to actually apply myself sometimes.
Yeah. Well, thank you for showing us the game.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Great.
And
but thank you guys for your questions.
yeah. Well, it's nice you can show us this and that. And, yeah.
And not too many super advanced variations, but definitely a lot of advanced concepts, I think.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that goes under the surface when you're making decisions. I would say for Q players, the biggest point, if they look back at this video, would be this move. I find for the students that watched my game that asked me, this was the one part of the game that all the high Q and low Don players sort of did not understand why this one was chosen. And I think for such a basic position, it's a good one to really think about, because it has a lot of really good principles. Like, yeah, we would like to press, but we can't always assume that our opponent will do what we want them to.
Yeah.
You know, and just the fact that, like, if you can stop yourself and think, oh, I'm going to go here and here and here, and just look at it from now and go, okay, but what if he jumps? You know, or you go, okay, but what if he comes out, right? You know, something like this. And when you start thinking about the alternatives, and you really start getting yourself into that headspace of just not expecting them to play the quote unquote normal move, and you really read the position, you can start finding things like this a lot better.
Yeah.
That one, or I guess the one I played in the game, this one. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, George, for setting things up.
Problem.
And I guess we'll see you all later.
Yeah. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.